John, you good?
I'm good. Let's roll, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
All right, folks, welcome back. Another week, another guest, and another returning guest. Zach Fisher of AFC Columbia down in Missouri joins us. Hi, Zach.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
All good, all good. As ever, joining me live from his office in Rochelle is John Hall. Hi, John.
I love that we pretend like we haven't been talking to Zach for 20 minutes, and then we all of a sudden go, hey, Zach, good to talk to you.
You think that all these radio guests don't have, like, ongoing conversations for hours and hours? Rogan's talking for weeks, you know that. Zach has been on the show once before, in his guise as the only person we could find to talk about NFTs, not NFTs, NIL, name, image, likeness stuff. NFTs is a whole other thing we're not going to get into. But Zach, we know Zach primarily because he is the founder, president, chairman, whatever nomenclature you want, of AFC Columbia, of the Midwest. In their inaugural season last year, they came second in the Midwest South, correct?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's shaking his head for those on watching in colour. Obviously unpleased with that. I'm sure we'll touch on that. But we wanted Zach on because Zach is in not the unique position, but a good position of having set up a club, have gone through all the pitfalls and the travails that a lot of people sort of abandon ship on. He's come through out the other side, and now a year in, he's got a couple more grey hairs. He looks a little bit more world-weary, but he's got stories to tell, I am sure. So, Zach, question number one. How was your inaugural season in the Midwest Premier League?
I would say it was a foundation year. We had to build the foundation. We had to get us to where we are hoping to be next year and the year after. And all in all, it was a good first year. We set up a lot of the processes that are going to make us successful for going forward. We were pretty competitive on the field. We only had one game where I would say we were outplayed by the other team on the field. We didn't win all the games, but we didn't lose them all either. So I consider that a success. The community is obviously a big part of how we're building our club. And that when we just did a farmer's market about 2 weeks ago, and we had an ungodly amount of people say, hey, when's the next game? How can we support? We were there. We came to your game, during the season. We averaged about 250 a game, except for one game where it was 107 degrees outside. So we don't really count that in the average attendance, but and even then, we had probably 90 or so people out there at the game. So, good foundation year. Coaching staff is, is on the way to where we want to be. Off the field is where we want to be. And really, it's just an experience. Year one is going into it is trying to tell people how, I've come from a sport management background, so I know how to run events. But teaching people who've never run events how to run events is, it's a challenge. So coming into year one and having to explain why we're doing certain things to prepare is now we're in year two, and they don't need to know why. They're like, oh, how can we build this better? How can we do this, even bigger? So, we've set that foundation, and that's probably the best way to explain it. It's, we've gotten past year one.
Yeah, for sure. How many of they are there? Like in terms of the day-to-day operations of the club, and then on a game day volunteer type? Obviously, everyone volunteers.
So we probably have like 3 different tiers. We have probably a tier that is involved in the day-to-day running, and there's probably 5 of them, not just me. Then we have a periphery of probably 6 or 7 people that help out with special projects and are there for special needs or whatever. And then on game day, we have probably 4 or 5 more people that kind of just help out with whatever. And it's hit or miss. We don't get them all at once. Usually we get a batch of them at once. And some of that was with scheduling this year, with some of the games this year being moved around and stuff like that. We had a little bit less time to plan out some of our things that we wanted to do. So give or take, probably there's 12 or so that are involved with the club in a capacity where we could say, hey, do a project and not have to babysit them. So I'll say about that.
All right, cool. Where did you get them from? Were they there from day one, or were you going through your Rolodex of contacts, or did you stumble upon them because there was a soccer club?
Yeah, so we didn't have a soccer club in the area. That's why we started calling it AFC. There wasn't a local club around. There hadn't been a club around. There was not even a women's team or anything like that to help build it around. So the first 4 that have been around for the longest have been just on social media. We just found each other. Hey, we're interested in your club. How can we get involved? And we kind of that. And then as we played in the indoor league, and then as we played in the Sunday league, we've kind of gathered people who were either players or had seen the club, and we've just kind of picked them up from there. I think 3 or 4 of them at least have played for the club at some point, either in Sunday league or indoor, and have just they weren't playing on the regional team, or even one of our players on the regional team this year was not only played but also helped out with business operations. So. We've just kind of accumulated people, and we've gotten 3 or 4 requests to have people join the not just the board but the operations in the fall here. So as the word grows, we just get people reach out and we figure out what they're good at and what they can be useful for, in a sense of what is their mindset, like what do they want to do, what interests them, so they're not just doing stuff that's boring. Some of it's boring in the sense of like some of it's paperwork, stuff like that, but for the most part they're doing things that they enjoy, and they're soccer people, so they're just happy to be part of it, and we appreciate them helping out when they can.
Nice. I got a question. I want to talk about the last season, but like starting today, and what does the off season look like for you guys?
Oh, we've had our postmortem already from last year. So John was thankful enough to help us with our postseason survey. We had a 2-week. We essentially took the month of August off because we just were burnt out, and we didn't want to push people after their burnout phase, because that's just when you're going to lose people, because you just need a break. Especially because we hosted the last 4 weeks. Like we were away all of June and home all of July, basically, for the most part. So we were just burnt out. So we had that postmortem. We figured out what we were good at, what we were bad at, what things we can do better. We had that. Okay, air your grievances. If you had something that was wrong, let us know now so that we can affect it. And then the things that's changed from this year to last year was we were advocating why we need to do business partnerships up front, and why we need to get on their fiscal calendars, why we need to get in front of these people now. Part of that's because of uniform orderings. Part of it's because just we need to be out there in advance in the community. So pretty much September 1st, we said, all right, it's a new year. We've reset all our business contacts. We've updated our business matrix, so saying who we've contacted, who our contacts are. And then we've started doing social community building. So we go out into the farmers market next month, or this coming month, we're looking to do either a festival or 2 festivals, and then updating our memberships. There's a lot of stuff that we did in the spring last year that we're doing in the fall this year, and that's one of the things that we're working on is a brand guideline. Like we want to trademark our logo. We want to make sure that the brand guidelines, so that when we get into the summer, we can hand them a guideline to interns and say, here's how we use our logo. This is the way we use it. So if you build social media stuff for us, this is the expectations on how that works. And instead of having me to handhold everyone and do everything myself, we can diversify, personnel, basically. And that's another thing, is like we need to start connecting with the colleges now to be able to get onto their calendar for the spring to get interns for the summer. So it's a year-long process to get those kind of things. So working on that, and we're working on facilities already for next year. So it never ends. It never ends.
Amen.
I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know, we would have been around this point at the time. I put out a tweet that was just like, so what does everyone else do during an off season? Tongue in cheek, because John was having me run pillar and post, and a couple of clubs were like what's an off season, because they got it, like you've got to do X, Y, Z, and a couple of people responded like, we're not doing anything until April, May, March, whenever, right? And it was just like, okay, good luck to you, but just I don't know how you're going to get those. And that goes back to what we were talking about offline as well, right? The mosaic of clubs versus teams versus kickballs versus whatever else. And I'm sure we will touch on that. Actually, let's touch on that now. What's the goal for AFC? In the you said year one was was foundation. What's the goal for this time next year? Where do you want to be, and then where do you want to be this time in 5 years or 10 years? Or
we want to be able to the point where you can walk around town and see the logo. Like that's the goal. We want to be able to see that like we're here. We're an established entity that helps not only sponsorships with getting players and just building a club atmosphere. We are more focused this year on building the game day experience and growing from 250 to our goal next year is 500. We'd like to average 500 with maybe a potential change of venue will help with that. But we're looking at how we engage with our members better, how we can really grow that community aspect versus we got the foundation. We're not too worried about how to field a product and that kind of stuff, but how do we grow into the community and how we can turn it into, I would say and I'm very critical of our club in the sense of our game day from a 1 to 10 was probably a 3 or 4 last year in terms of what I think it can be. And our goal is to get that to a 7 or an 8 so that we can get to the point where we can sell enough tickets that we're fiscally wholesome without having to have external support. So we had player fees last year. I'd love to be able to get to that fiscally where we don't need to do that. So there's a lot of growth in that area of we need to build the fan base up to the point where not only is it a thing when you wear the logo, people know what it is in town, but also we can promote it to maybe a larger audience instead of having to focus solely on getting the hardcore soccer people in town, that we can get the average soccer people, and trickle down that escalator of interest in soccer to the point where if someone's not interested in soccer, but they see that the local soccer team's playing, that they might come out and check it out. So
yeah, local pride, right?
Yeah, so it's local pride. And part of it, people from Columbia have attachments to either St. Louis or Kansas City. So in the summer, we're trying to maybe localize our interest in our city because our city doesn't have minor league baseball or anything like that to compete against or have to say that's our own.
We've said a number of times that we're always surprised. Well, I'm certainly surprised, like how many people don't know about us, which sounds kind of arrogant, right? Like. We've been here for 5 years. Everyone should know about us. We should be as popular as NIU Huskies. But John can testify, like, there's people just do not know that the soccer club exists. And to my mind, I always go back to that if people cared about soccer, there would already have been a soccer club, a thriving soccer club in town. I think the people that you've got to get on board are, as you said, the minorly interested soccer people and the disinterestedly not soccer people who are coming because you're representing Springfield, and that's what they do. But getting those butts on seats is huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, financially, the difference between 250 people in the gate and 500 people in the gate is substantial. So it's it's part of there's a rationale behind butts and seats.
Well, and it creates that environment too. Like nobody wants to go to a party with 13 people, but if you put 400 people in my backyard, that place is rocking. And if you want to create that environment of, hey, you should have been there too, then you need people to be there to start that sort of snowball. You mentioned, Zach, going to farmers markets and different things like that. We go back and forth about this because there's so many opportunities to get out there. Do you guys try to target like one thing a month in the off season to just keep out there, something to market towards, or do you building off not just the community events, but like what are you doing differently with marketing heading into year 2?
Year 1, it was difficult because no one knew we existed really. Like it was like we had soccer people knew we existed, like the people in town knew we existed, but like people like the average like just soccer fan didn't know. Like unless you played in the Sunday League or you played against us in indoor, like no one really knew that we were building. So year 1, it was hard to explain what we were, not necessarily like what the goal was, or just we were explaining like soccer's coming to Columbia in this form. So our goal in the off season is once a month, and then as we grow into internships and grow, hopefully keep growing into the spring, into the summer, that we're doing probably once every 2 weeks in the spring, and then hopefully in the summer we're having an intern, 2 or 3 interns that can go to as many events as we can get them to promote the club. Yeah, the really big thing was trying to explain what we are to now people know what we are and are asking about how we can get more information. That's kind of really and for us, it's not really, even if like the farmers market, we couldn't sell anything. So like we didn't make any revenue off that. So there's opportunities to not only go to events, but also make revenue if you're allowed to sell jerseys and shirts and stuff like that. So there's not only revenue opportunity, but a marketing opportunity there. So we're always looking for those opportunities because not only are we getting, growing the club that way, but fiscally we're doing non-game day revenue, which will help with the budget long term. So there's justifications between doing certain events over others, and we just have to figure out how to avoid burnout and how can we hit as many different areas in town, because the farmers market, not only the same person that's going to go to the jazz festival or something. There's just so many different pots of people, and we had one person at the farmers market said, I didn't even know you guys existed. I'm like, well, that's why we're here, because we have to grow some, we have to get the word out. And just like the guy from Scotland's like, there's so many, people on social media but they still go to your website. Well, there's some people just don't go on media in general, so like you got to figure out other ways to get to them. So
it still goes back to like street signs and billboards and all the online digital things, and I think that's why Nick I don't know that we'll ever get it where everybody knows us. I think that's one of the big challenges we have is just people. It's one thing to see the logo and be like, yeah, I've seen that, but even seeing the logo or seeing a sign doesn't tell the story. And how do you get out and tell that story? There's only so many hours in a day and so many ways to do it electronically, through videos and different things like that. I think it gets. I said this yesterday in a conversation with somebody. We look to Europe as like, man, they've been doing this for 150 years. I think if you dropped anybody in a community, they're going to struggle, despite all their history. They're going to struggle to figure out how to connect when you're not already the culture of what's going on. I think this is a thing that is why we do this podcast, is to tell stories and tell the stories of the things that worked and didn't work. And I think there's a lot of similarities to what we're all going through and trying to do it sort of through the community and not through an individual investor. But that long comment leads me to a question. If you are at a point where you're quote unquote sustainable, you're coming back for year 2, so the finances are good enough to exist, right? That's the first low bar. If splashed with a little bit of extra money from a sponsor or from something else, what do you do with that X amount of dollars? Like where are you investing those resources?
Outside of just we're trying to reduce player fees and trying to make it accessible to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, without spending it on operations and field rentals and T-shirts for your team, and you know what I mean. Like, how do you grow your community awareness through that?
So what I would do is I would have a marketing suite of things that we can do, like a branded tent. I would do more signage. I would try to get more promotional materials, because ultimately that revenue, you're hoping to take that revenue and grow it into even bigger revenue in the future to help it be more sustainable. So, like, obviously we'd love to have another tablecloth. We'd love to have, another branded tent. Like I said, we would love to even buy a bounce house. That's one thing that we would love to do. We have a small one, but we like to have another one, stuff that we can use on game day to make the game day experience better, so that people will, come back and do more. So, those are things that we would probably look at doing, is more game day experience type items, and probably I would love to do a paid social campaign next year versus just organic social. I think that revenue makes it itself, like it pays for itself, like it pays back. And not only that, it grows your audience because more people are likely to follow you, and there's reasons to do those kinds of things. And we would only spend it on things that we would expect to get a return on investment, either short-term or long-term. Some of these things you're going to get long-term investment. Some of them are going to be immediate. But at least paid social, I can go to my board and say, I spent $50 and we made $150 in tickets. Let's do this more. And that's how you're kind of, going up the escalator, so to speak. I would also invest in a better streaming setup. That's probably another thing. Our streaming setup was awful. So that was learning as we go here.
What were you using streaming-wise?
We just had a basic camcorder camera, and we were using 11 Sports, and we just had some technical difficulties between the capture rate of the camera wasn't translating to the computer, and then we had Wi-Fi issues because of the venue, and it wasn't a lack of effort; it was a lack of technology didn't like us, and we're trying to figure that out. So if you try to watch our stream last year, we apologize. It wasn't on purpose. We just didn't really have a technical answer for it, and we're already working on fixing it for next year.
All very easy from the ivory tower of the standards commission to say we've got to have this, that, and the other, isn't it? Absolutely yes. On the paid marketing front, on the paid events on Facebook, we're probably going to do an episode on it. It's kind of what I do, but I'm going to get probably someone else on to talk about it in more depth. And we will have, in inverted commas, idiots questions. It's easy for me to know what I'm doing and ask questions. So stay tuned, Zach. But yeah, anybody listening, the fact that you got 250 people on your opening day without doing paid marketing is phenomenal, frankly. Congratulations on that. Longer term, like you said, you wanted brand awareness, whatever, but like Is AFC Columbia first team it, or are you looking to put out tentacles into youth and to women's soccer and over 40s and whatever else?
Women's soccer, we'll just say, is on the horizon. It's near but not official. But we are building a team that is going to, be in charge of that and explain exactly what we want to do, how we want to do it, and it's very female led too. So that's going to be kind of exciting. From they're kind of telling us what they want, how they want to do it, and what they want to do. It'll be same badge, same name, everything, just a women's version. We would like to get more involved with the adult leagues in the area, so have a little bit more organization in some of the outdoor leagues, whether it be a fall league. There is currently a pretty substantial summer league here in Columbia. We'd like to maybe look into that to see how we could help or do our own thing, or what have it. There's only one small, tiny indoor facility that runs their own thing, so we can't really have it. There's not really anything for us to do there, but really trying to grow into like watch parties and those. We're trying to be a full-fledged club and trying to be doing events as a club, even when we're not playing. So that is the holistic picture. Ideally, obviously, we'd like to start investing into some kind of fund for our own facility, not only because it cuts our costs down long term, but also we can use it to generate revenue for other events that's not named our club. So that's really the goal for right now. The goal right now is to try to get into adult soccer and stay away from youth soccer as much as possible. That's just because we have two large youth clubs in town, and they do their things, and we'll help support them as much as we can and raise money for scholarships for them, and we'll stick to the adult soccer. But that's kind of the goal. Our goal is to be the adult soccer organization in town, basically.
That's fair. What was your roster primarily this last season? Were you college based? Were you local kids? Were you local grown men who should know better? What?
We were about half and half, about half college players. So we have a very Basque-esque rule, and either you have to be from Columbia, live in Columbia, or have played at a Columbia high school or college in town. So you have to have some Columbia connection. We didn't bring ringers in from out of state. We didn't have anyone like that. Everyone had a Columbia connection. About half of them had played for or are playing. I'd say maybe just a quarter, maybe a third, somewhere around there. We're currently playing, and then we have a lot that just graduated, and we. The colleges around here, NAI, they've won 3 out of the last 4 national championships. The top 2 of the top 3 NAI teams in the country are here. We had 2 or 3 Division I players on our team. I can't remember how many. And then but even saying that they're from Columbia, we had a very diverse team. We had about a third of the roster came from Africa originally. So it was kind of cool to see some of the different flags and stuff that were being, on our social media from all the different countries. So very diverse. But what we're building towards long term is we're building to that we can play in any month of the year and be able to field a competitive roster. So that is the goal long term, is to it's great to bring in the college players, but we want to be able to play when we need to play and build towards the US Open Cup if that becomes a thing.
Yeah. Is there a timeline on that, or is that just like the goal? And if it happens
we're about 3 or 4 years out. We kind of have a general idea of that pipeline of what we think we need to get to, but let's check back in year 2. We'll see how we are. We'll see how we are on that pipeline.
So far, this podcast, we just make a habit of getting the same old guests back year after year. So we'll definitely keep an eye on you. Don't worry about that. John, have you got anything? I've got a couple more questions I know I want to get out, but you've got.
Yeah, I just from a management perspective, I know the answer because we've talked about this, but how involved are you with players and coaching through the actual season?
I was a little bit probably more hands-on than I wanted to be originally, but we had a person who had some personal issues right before the season who we were going to have as like our kit person or equipment person that was going to be handling all the registrations and stuff. Like he had some personal issues, so he had to step away. So we had a void that I filled because I had done the ordering in jerseys and stuff. So I was very active this year. I was pretty much at most of the practices, if not all of them. I wasn't at all of them. I was at most of them though. I never coached, never gave coaching suggestions. We talked about roster management just from a health standpoint. The coach's coach. We did have a postmortem at the end of the season where I gave my feedback, and it was largely player-based feedback. Players can talk to me whenever they want. They know that. They talk to me even at Sunday League games after just talking about the club and how they think they can help grow it and all that stuff. But next year we'll be more hands-off. This was just year 1. We're going to make sure that it was running professionally. We got a lot of positive feedback that the games run professionally and stuff like we're run at a higher level than some of the other clubs that we played. And It's not to knock them. We put a premium on having that experience, and I wanted to know what the players thought about their experiences throughout the year, and had an open dialogue with the captain. I said, the captain, you can make whatever comment you want whenever you want it, and we'll take it for what it is. But for the most part, if it was a playing, I didn't have any players approach me about any playing stuff really, other than just feedback, just comments, just one-off comments. So I was very hands-on this year, but the goal is for this year or for next year is to be pretty much, they do their thing and we'll do ours, and we'll see how we can interact outside of social media stuff. Like, you're always going to need to be involved with like social media videos and that kind of stuff.
So did you one of the questions that my good friend and yours, Andy Hayes, asked me our first ever match 4.5 years ago was, what's the end goal for you, John? And I asked you, Zach, now that you've started it and got a little bit of trajectory, where are you in 10 years with this chaos that you've created?
Yeah, my goal would be my goal when we started this was to bring men's and women's soccer, a competitive semi-pro team to Columbia and have it be competitive. I think we'll have accomplished that in year 2, or well, it's really year 4, but year 2 of the actual team playing. I would like to eventually, the presidency rotates every 2 years, so I'll probably step more into a consulting role after this year, or more into a there for you need it type role. I still am very much hands-on though, so I don't think that'll happen. But I will be very, the goal will be to have a new leader at the end of next year to be president, and I can help him with more league stuff or business stuff. But I think it's healthy that club leadership changes over every so often, so that leader doesn't get burnt out, but also we get fresh ideas and fresh perspective. And but I have a master's in sport management, so I have 8 years of experience running high-end sporting events. So I'm always going to be around to help make sure the club is operating at a high level as much as we can be with the resources we have. So 2 years. Hopefully we have a new president and I can help with that and stay around. But eventually I do a lot and I'd like to do less as we go in. But we're getting new people in that are filling those voids. So once I feel comfortable that the club could operate more or less without me, that would be kind of where we're going. Not that I'll ever actually leave the club.
Got it.
Yeah.
I just want to drink beer.
Yeah,
I just
John's
want to
little
drink
face
beer
the
and go
idea
to
of
the
giving
games
up the
and go.
presidency. He cannot get out of it quick enough. But
Yeah,
have you
Yeah,
got that line of succession in your head, even if it's not verbalized? Do you know, like, are the people that want that gig? Are the people that you want to have that gig? Without naming names?
I have my own version, but I'm not going to tell them that.
Yeah,
So
no.
if they listen to this podcast, I don't want them to know this. But I have an idea of how we do it. But I mean, honestly, building the experience of people running the event from year 1, you can already tell a change of mindset going into year 2. And I would imagine that those same people that we did a great job for us this year are going to have a change of mindset for year 3 on how they can be even better. And it's been great to see that growth. I was a little concerned going into it year 1, how they were going to handle it after going through a season. And I think they're asking questions that they didn't ask last year that were even better. And as we keep building that base of experience, that hopefully leaders will step up and go from there.
Okay,
I'm confident if I got hit by a bus, someone could take it over and it would be just fine.
The
music might not be great on game day, but we'll figure it out.
We use the term "get hit by the lottery bus." It's a little more positive. I think that's one question that I have, and this is something Nick and I deal with all the time. But what is your organizational schedule through this off season? You got an 8 or 9 month off season. How often are you meeting with just the board, the full? You said 3 tiers of staff, basically. When are you meeting with them, and how does that work?
Yeah, tiers 1 is the staff, so they're pretty much required to show up to monthly meetings. It's once a month right now. We'll start doing bi-weeklies in January and start going into February as we ramp up and start getting stuff aligned. And we really ramp up once the holidays hit. Probably November 1st is when we'll really start kicking up into gear twice a week. I mean, we communicate on Microsoft Teams pretty much every day about business stuff. So, and then tier 2 is kind of invited if you want to show up. If not, you don't really have an official set thing you have to do. But some people get involved with special products and stuff like that. We'll go into, like I said, bi-weekly, probably starting in January, and then we'll go into that'll be pretty much it until the season starts. If we can't get stuff done every bi-weekly, then we'll wrap it up. But we also have 3. So we're organized. We have a business committee, a comms committee, and then we have the on-field people. We call it the competition committee. But so the business committee has right now there's a little bit of mix over, but We're growing the comms community to be its own thing, so that business people can focus on business, the social media and video people can focus on promoting the club on media, and then they can do, as we get in, they can build into their respective things. So the things that you're doing in the off season is stuff you do during the season for both of those committees. So we're not training a whole bunch of new people once the season starts. We have some idea of what went into the back end of building it out. Obviously, people move, so people move on us, and they and that happens, and that was frustrating this year. Is it was good for them? They both of them moved to better things and up in their careers, but you have to plan for that too.
Selfish is what the word you're looking for, really, isn't it? Just
no. Selfish
right.
For me, but good for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. You said something a while back that just chimed with me. Was like, this is you going into year 2, but it's actually year 4. Indicative of all the amount of planning that went into it ahead of time and yada yada yada. No amount of planning can allow for everything, right? So what surprised you this year in terms of operations or standards or whatever?
Scheduling was a nightmare. Scheduling was not.
There's only 3 of you, three other clubs. How hard could it have been?
Scheduling and just dealing with politics in lower league soccer. Just dealing with, I'm not gonna call any specific clubs out, but just dealing with trying to put a schedule together.
Livonia.
No, I'd love to go play them. Eventually AFC will play Livonia and we'll play DeKalb, and we'll worry about all that later. But just dealing with all that, I knew it was going to happen, but I also didn't expect how bad it was going to be in some situations. My club's better than your club. This, that. We're not going to travel there because we're a bigger club and whatever. We've learned quickly to worry about our club and not worry about everyone else's club, and be the best you can be and not worry about whatever. We tell our team, whatever your away game is, it's their club. They run their club the way they want it, and we go there and we play the game, and that's our job. So we control our home games, and we'll make our home games about as best as we can, and we'll build that up. But I think that's the biggest lesson learned, was focus on your club, and if they do their things their way, they do their things their way, and it is what it is. But scheduling was a nightmare. Well, we will not do that again next year. Scheduling was a nightmare.
You're going to get someone else in to do it. Just, hey, throw money at the problem.
I think we're going to approach the officialness of our schedule a little differently.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm intrigued about that. I haven't touched that with a crappy stick, and I'm not going to, because I don't envy you at all. That's why I know John has managed to get rid of that job as well. So congratulations, John. All right, I want to touch on the stuff that we were talking about off air beforehand. But John, have you got anything that you wanted to bring up before we go down that route?
No, that's all good. I think I think one of the things that I was curious briefly is throw us a high and a low real quick on last season to kind of wrap it up with where you were. Aside from getting to deal with me at the league level as a high or a low, maybe both. What was great, and what was kind of the weak point for your season, real quick?
From what you said, from a league standpoint, or just in general?
No, from AFC Columbia.
The high was honestly just having the support there and the support growth. Like, it seems like 250 is a lot for some things, but there's concern that no one's going to show up. So, that was a big thing. I think beating Santa Fe 4-3 when we were down 3-1 and not looking good in the first quarter was a competitive high. Low was not winning the league. I mean, we were, in my opinion, we were definitely the better team in game 1 against Ajax, and we were probably about half and half for game 2. So frustrating that they not only won the rivalry cup, but also the conference from a competitive standpoint. Low was we didn't off the field was probably not hitting our game day experience as much as we wanted to. We struggled just because of moving pieces that sometimes were out of our control. Sometimes that it was hard to explain why we do certain things at a certain time, and you never have enough staff for all the things that you want to do. But that's kind of the thing. Good thing is that the low things are things that we can control and we can fix and get better. So I think that's the best part.
It boils down to wants versus needs as well, doesn't it? Right? Of just like we want the 3-hour pre-game show, and we want people tailgating from 9 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff. But we don't need. What we need is to ensure that there's people manning the gate, there's people coming through the gate, and that there's a product for them to watch. After that, it's bells and whistles and smokes and mirrors. So we have to focus on what what matters most. All right, no one listening to this will know that we were chatting before, but I've alluded to it. We had an interesting conversation about the future or growing soccer in the US, and this isn't a pro-rel conversation. We don't need to switch off and go and tell Ted, but to press it, basically, I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Zach, that you feel like there's a glass ceiling for independent, small minor league club growth without some sort of overarching management. I don't want to say pyramid because that then goes into the pro-rel stuff, but and where you're progressing your club.
I don't know if there's necessarily a glass ceiling because like there's clubs like Lansing who are that are growing pretty substantially without a glass ceiling. Like there's you can grow, but what are you, like? My biggest thing is some of these, and it's not to knock any league, and it's just especially is like, all right, you played your season, you build your club up, but like, guess what? You're going to be in the same league next year. You have played the same teams you probably play if they survived, if they financially survived. You're going to do it again next year, and there's not really you have a chance at some trophies. There's 2 national cups basically. You know, if you're your league national cup and the amateur cup. There's not really a way to grow into something bigger. Like you're not playing teams farther away. You're not playing better teams. You're going to play the same teams that are in your league. So right now, as we speak, there's not really a rationale of why a person should support your club versus another club necessarily, other than where you are geographically. So there's got to be a system in place that rewards clubs who play well, like Minneapolis City and Menace up there. Like those are 2 great clubs. They probably should be playing more competitive clubs more often. Like there's got to be a way to set clubs apart that are doing well on the field and give them a rationale. And that's not really a pro-well thing because I don't know if our club isn't ready to play professionally. Our club is not ready to play regionally. Like we could not travel to Michigan all the time. We could not travel to Minnesota. But over time, there's got to be a system in place that gives clubs the opportunity to do that. There's got to be a reason to keep building your club, and rewards for doing that are playing bigger and better clubs. And it's one difference. So, for example, like we play Club A in, say, Timbuktu or whatever. They're a small club, and they don't bring anyone to our games. It's just their team. There's not really anything back. They maybe not be competitive. Versus if we kept growing, we played bigger clubs. If we played Lansing DeKalb every week where they're having away fans travel, like that grows your brand as well because the game day is bigger. It means more. You're hitting a wider audience and a wider net. So I don't necessarily think there's a glass ceiling, but I think there's got to be a reason for clubs. And I was thinking about this financially is you could go start your own club right now if you wanted to. Like there's everyone starts on the same level. Why didn't you just go start your own thing? Versus if you had a tiered system, not necessarily a pyramid, but if bigger clubs are playing bigger clubs, people are more likely to invest in those clubs because they are higher and they're playing bigger teams than say just go do their own thing and start it, which is kind of what happens in the US. If you don't like someone in X city, you just go start your own club and you just play it. Like there's not really, that doesn't make sense to me. Like there's got to be a way for clubs to achieve something higher up into a certain point. There you go. Mm-hmm. That's my rambling.
No, that's I don't think anyone disagrees, right? I mean, it sounds a lot like pro-rel, but it isn't. I completely take your point. There's got to be a place to go when you deserve to go somewhere else, be that up or be that down. But at the moment, it's purely driven by finances rather than ability. Realistically, if you've got the money to go USL, you go USL. If you don't, you don't.
But even those clubs, like you paid into something. Like, are you really a club? Like you paid the money for the info. And it's not to knock them, but it's not to knock them because there's great clubs in that league, and there's great clubs in MPSL, there's great clubs in UPSL. But like, there's got to be a way to separate clubs who do well on and off the field that have grown into something who can support a bigger mission, so that they can do that. Those players are. There's got to be a way to separate those clubs from other clubs who are just starting. And also, if you're starting a new club and your team isn't very good and you don't have great off the field products, like you're getting crushed. Are you really coming back in year 2 and 3 after you just got beat 10-0 by everybody? Like you want to give teams a chance to grow into something, but also competitive teams a reason to keep being competitive.
Absolutely. Like what's the reason for existing? I guess my counter to that is that if you grow your club exponentially, logically it's your neighbors that notice more because of the American scene, right? People in Portland, Oregon don't care what's going on in Missouri. Most people don't care what's going on in Missouri, right? But if you build Springfield, I don't know what's the approximate population of Springfield, give or take.
Columbia.
No, which one? In Missouri or in Illinois?
Columbia. Yeah. So why am I looking at Springfield? Columbia. Sorry. Well, what's the approximate population of Columbia?
I think there's 125,000 in Columbia, and I think there's 75,000 in Jefferson City, which is a 30-minute drive down the road.
Yeah. So you keep building Columbia. Logically, somewhat the law of averages says someone in Jefferson wants to replicate it. All right. Once I want what they've got, but I don't want to drive that whole 30 minutes down the road. So I'm going to do it. And if they do it right, then their neighbors do it, and their neighbors do it. And I think it's not how you grow your club, but it's how you grow the footprint so that there's a natural tipping point whereby you don't have to play Jefferson because they've just started up. You don't have to play whoever, Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, Jesus. But you don't have to play whoever because they are a different level to you. But that's because of the volume of clubs rather than the value of the club.
Zach, we've had this talk a lot with league conversations with the Midwest Premier League, but look at our dear friends Union Dubuque, right? There was not a level sort of to step down. They had to shut down instead of saying, hey, this regional thing doesn't really work. I need to take a step down and go backwards and regroup our fan base and continue to operate. It's not just to your point, Zach, of going up. Yeah, the top 20% of clubs maybe can go up, but how many entry level clubs that just you spent 2 years building your club before you did anything? People don't always take that time that they need to. They need those 2 years on the field to find their footing and establish the business side of it. And having those levels below, I think, is just as important, where people can, you can sustain at varying levels. And I think the most frustrating thing, Zach, you experienced in the South and we still do even in the Chicago areas, the varying levels of teams and clubs. And while you're trying to do a fun match day thing and collecting tickets and marketing and bounce houses, there's others that it's just roll the ball out. And it gets frustrating when you put in the work you do. You want your peers to do the same and respect the type of environment you're trying to create. That's exactly, I think, what you're saying too. They're like, those levels don't exist for everything to sort itself out a little bit. Not just on the playing field, but all the other stuff. So I think it's a very dynamic, ever-changing conversation, and I think there's a million ways it could be done. And I'm excited as we head into a World Cup and then another home World Cup over these next 5 years. I think lower league soccer's just we're in a great spot to really change it and start turning it in the right direction, I think.
We're all building something.
Right.
All right. I think we're done here. I'm conscious that people's emails are pinging left, right, and centre. Thank you, Zach. If there's anybody from the Columbia area who's listening to this and didn't know you exist, Christ knows how, but how can they get hold of you? Or even remotely that they want to help you because they like the sound of your voice. How can they get hold of you?
We're on social media, AFC Columbia on both Instagram, Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook, and then afccomo.com, afccomo.com. There's a link on contacting us and getting involved, and please buy a shirt or please
membership. They've got 2023 memberships on sale now. Get there and look good. And I was a member a season ago. I think he raised his price. Did we raise prices this year? It seems like.
We talked about hypotheticals here, and we're seeing hypotheticals that one team turned into two teams. There will be a larger number of events if should a said second teams start. So
understood. Yes.
Pyramid scheme. That's what it sounds like.
No, it's all good. Yes, and I'll tell you what, the detail. I actually saved all the stuff that came in the AFC Columbia branded mailer which I thought was a nice touch. I think the level of detail you guys put into it, it shows the professional nature of your club, even though you're an amateur club, and very well done. I encourage others to go get a membership. This family membership is a great deal, I'll tell you what.
What did you get for your membership, John? What did you get?
I got a shirt, I got tickets, I got I got a pack of this, I got stickers, I got all kinds of stuff in that thing. I mean, it's been 7 months.
Shirt, stickers,
scarf,
discount on club shop. Yep. And I would say this, and let's talk about volunteers real quick. I mean, Matt did a really good job with the website, and it was, it's frustrating building something from scratch, but once it's built and you can see what you built and how well it's done and how great of a job he did at it, like those things that find people that are passionate about it and have a really good skill, like those are people who are invaluable. So we have a lot of people like that. Like Grant does a great job with the club shop on game days and things like that. Like those are people, invest in your people and they'll turn out great products. And could not do it myself. I don't know anything about building websites. So, they've done a lot of great jobs, and we learn. We took that membership idea from Lansing. So find clubs that are doing it better than you and replicate it.
Very well done.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Zach, one question that you weren't expecting, and if you can't find an answer, I will edit it out and then just ping me at some point, but I do want an answer at some point, and I'll just stick it on the ping that we stick out. Who should we talk to on this podcast, either club-wise or expertise-wise, or just an area that you think would benefit listeners?
Before we moved here, we were here in Pensacola, and we were with the Golf Clubs Premier League, and there's a lot of good clubs who are doing a lot of good things that probably don't get a lot of interaction from some people in the Midwest. And they just do things a little bit differently. Like Mobile does a great job of it down there with their game day experience, and cannot speak highly of that or more highly of that. There's clubs that you see like Temecula, who's out west, who does a great job with their club shop, and there's Ballard FC, who is up in the Northwest. There's a lot of several clubs that do good things and that are revenue generating opportunities, and we really like to talk to them, hear how they do their things. Obviously, okay. Lansing is a good one from a membership standpoint. And then Asheville City down there in North Carolina, which is where I went to college in Tar Heel State. Their game day experience is really good. So those are areas that I think a lot of clubs could learn things from. Is how do you build it to where they are now, because they're doing a lot of good things. I think some of those are USL2 teams, so they might have a different experience on how they operate and things like that. So those are always my suggestions.
Perfect.
Yep. So those are I always like to hear from clubs that are doing it better than me. So I think those are opportunities.
Don't we all? All right, gentlemen. John, you good?
Yeah, all good.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Zach, same time next year.
Yeah, same time next year.
All right, buddy. Catch you later. Yeah. Thanks all.
Now the time has come for leaving, fear now we shall return. We were so glad we could make it, but so sad we gotta run. Well, it might be a long time till we raise another glass. You can rest assured that next time we'll have ourselves a laugh. Yeah, we'll have ourselves a laugh. Away.